I am so excited to have Ellina with me today to discuss career pivoting, EFT, and how she allowed herself to make the change a more intuitive process. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So tell me the story. What was it like for you to go from point A to point B?
Well, I'll start with saying that it definitely wasn't a very clear point A to point B. There were a lot of twists and turns along the way, but looking back from the point where I am, it all makes a lot more sense. The biggest shift happened when I left the corporate world and became self-employed, which I have been since December 2019. When I became an entrepreneur, there's been an abundance of different opportunities and pivots. I've done everything from co-producing music and consciousness events to DJing to coaching and now having my online community for EFT tapping. There's been a lot in terms of my entrepreneurial journey, but there's always been a thread of consciousness through it, no matter what it is that I do. The change from corporate to entrepreneurship came for me out of curiosity and
Mhm.
honoring that curiosity. I had been with the same company for 7.5 years. It was a great company, Progressive Insurance, one of the biggest insurance companies in the US. Really great culture. And the company was growing really fast when I joined when I was 20 years old, actually. And when I joined, my intentions and what I was looking for was an employer. I wanted to work for an organization and I wanted to grow within an organization. And that's what I did.
Mhm.
So for 7 years, I was climbing the ladder. I was happy with it. I liked my coworkers. I liked my salary. And then it got to a point where I reached middle management. So you're not an individual contributor anymore, but you're not high up there. So I was a supervisor. It was time for me to decide my next step. I realized I didn't like any of the options. They were more of the same, but with a bigger paycheck. At that point, that became less important to me.
Mhm.
I started soul searching around the age of 25, 26.
Okay.
I am turning 33 in September.
Okay.
I've always been spiritual, but it was around that time that I really went deeper than ever before.
Thank you so much for sharing all that. Also, happy early birthday.
Thank you.
What were some of the signs that you needed to go deeper in your spirituality or maybe start to explore the next phase of your life?
Great questions. The signs were subtle and not at the same time because I was in such a routine of going to work, going out, and going to the gym. That was my autopilot mode. Little by little, I just started feeling disengaged from my environment. Like the
Mm,
things I was doing weren't exciting me anymore. I could tell that I was always a really high performer in
mhm.
my job. And then I got a very mediocre review at work. And my manager was like, you're kind of just doing the minimum. And that's when I realized, like, yeah, I don't see the light at the end of the tunnel for this. I don't want to keep doing more of the same. And then when I would see emails come in celebrating people's like 30th anniversary with the company, I would get like anxious. I would feel anxiety and I would think, wow, if I don't do something, that's going to be me. So whereas other people maybe were like, one day that'll be me,
Mhm.
I was like, I have to make sure this is not me. And so I started I mean, in full transparency, I was completely lost. I didn't
Mhm.
know this. I knew for 7.5 years. I only knew insurance. I only knew this company, and I didn't want to leave the company to go to another company because there was nothing wrong with the company. I just didn't want to be doing this type of work anymore. So those were a couple of the signs. I was also getting my master's at the time, and I got through all of the classes, but then I failed my dissertation proposal and I realized that I don't even know what I want to write a dissertation on. because I didn't know myself or what I was passionate about or what would be interesting to me, because I was kind of losing touch with myself.
Mhm.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
failing that was also really tough.
Oh, I'm hearing
And
a
I'll
few
happen
things
in
as
a
you're
moment.
talking about your story. One being just the fear of that stagnancy, because so many people do love celebrating those huge work milestones, but you saw 30 years for other people and you were like, no way, that can't be me. I do not want my name coming across the screen for that. But then there's also that, okay, what do I do next? And there's that unknown piece. There's that uncertainty piece. There is the feeling lost piece. And I think that's sometimes when the fear creeps in. When we want to make a change, we know we need to make a change. It's that awareness. Then it's like, what's next?
Yeah, exactly. So I always think back on that time as the time when my fear of the unknown was less than my fear of staying where I was.
Mm,
So it's like I felt like, as scary as it was to leap into something totally new and different, I couldn't be where I was anymore. It was so
mm,
uncomfortable. I got so uncomfortable that I just started. I started changing things, and that's another part of it too. Is with the pivot and the transition, is that it's not like one day I got up and I quit. I didn't do that. I started to discover myself little by little
mhm,
and making preparations for a change that I didn't even know what it was going to be, but I just started preparing. So I always think in my narrative that a big pivot for me was actually something totally unrelated to career. And it was
mm,
that I had an existential moment when I asked myself, if I had one of my biggest regrets right now, like if my life was over today, what would be my biggest regret? And something really interesting came up, and it was that I would have never had a dog. I always wanted a dog, and I never was allowed to have one. So I said, you know what? Despite the fact that like 99% of people told me don't do it, it's a big responsibility, it's expensive, that I'm doing it. And it was because of that dog that I ended up switching gyms to something closer to my home instead of my office. And I started going to a yoga class where I really learned how to meditate for the first time. And that allowed me to really tune into my intuition and start getting more clarity on who I am and what I actually want if what is happening is not aligned for me.
yeah. You just spoke to a few different things. And if it's okay with you, I would love to explore the dog piece of it as well, because I also am a dog mom
I love
and
talking
I love my,
about
I love my dog. But I love that you highlight the fact that you didn't wake up and make these changes. You didn't wake up and it was like full transformation, full throttle. It was sitting with the awareness of where you were, recognizing where you didn't want to be, and then making it's when the internal hits first and then the external matches kind of later on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because your external at any given moment is a reflection of all of your past thoughts and habits. So that's another thing that was happening in my reality, is that the people around me didn't understand what I was going through, because I started vocalizing that I don't really feel happy in my situation. And people did not understand, like my parents, my friends, the guy I was dating at the time, they were like, you have a really good job. Like, what else would you do if not this? And I was like, I don't know. And they're like, well, you have to keep going. I was like, okay, time to try something new. And actually having that awareness opened up my mind to the opportunities around me. There was a day when one of my coworkers came up to me and she said she was looking to change her place of living she was going to apply for a position within the company in South Florida. We were in New Jersey at the time. And in the past, whereas I could have been like, okay, awesome, good luck with that, I thought, wow, that's a great idea. I should do that too. And so we both applied for roles within the company,
Mhm.
and we both got them. She went to Fort Lauderdale, I went to Miami. And creating that space between my old life and the new life that I was calling in
Mm.
was huge, not just literally. It's only a 2-hour flight, but the implications were tremendous, especially considering the types of people that I connected with in Miami that were also like already in it. Like they were already living their purpose. They're already entrepreneurial and excited about life. Whereas not to say that where I came from, there aren't people like that. I just wasn't aligned with them there.
Mhm. Yeah, it's very different when you are in alignment with those individuals and then you are recognizing they are living out their purpose, which is something so much deeper than a career. It is something much deeper than we can't put dollar signs to it, basically. It is something that is so fulfilling internally, externally. I mean, it's everything.
Calling.
Yeah. But I wanted to
That's
also,
that's how I
yeah, I also wanted to explore the dog mom dynamic too, because I wonder what is it about having a pet that makes us slow down a little bit or be more intentional. I just recently got a dog earlier this year, and it has really shifted my perspective in so much. He's still a puppy, he just turned 1. And I am much more interested in being more intentional about my time, and I'm wondering if that's what it felt like for you. I also had the message that I wouldn't like a dog, it would be a big responsibility, that it would just be a lot. I didn't have a dog growing up. I wasn't allowed to have pets growing up, so I very much resonated with that sentiment. So I wanna kinda just talk about, I mean, what is it about having a dog?
Yeah, I love that you're bringing this up because I've never really gone deeper on this. Considering it was only really quite recently that I realized that getting him was as pivotal as
Mhm.
it was in my story. Because when you're going through it, you're not realizing
Right.
what is a catalyst for you. You're just going through it. So yeah, there's a quote that's like, if we bring the dog, it'll slow things down, but maybe that's the point.
Mm.
And for me, it was a responsibility. It
Mm.
was a responsibility for something outside of myself because at that point, I was very self absorbed. Like I was 25 with, with a nice salary, living on my own with my friends, just doing whatever I wanted, which yet, like, it sounds so glamorous, but like, I didn't feel a purpose.
Yeah.
I didn't feel aligned with anything, responsible for anything. I had my bills, of course, and family, but I didn't really have any true responsibility. So I think he really connected me first to my sense of purpose. So, like, now I have something to take care of, like a living being that is depending on me. And I mean, I find him to be a magical little creature. We all love our dogs, but he also was born on 12/12, which is said to be a portal in
Mhm.
astrology. So I always joke he was like dropped in from another universe to help me. But yeah, he was my little buddy. We moved together from New Jersey to Miami, and it's just unconditional love.
Mm.
It's unconditional love and both ways,
Mhm.
right? Like I can't be mad at him for anything and I have to take care of him no matter what.
Yeah.
And he is just always there for me. And then in that case, like quite literally, I had to make changes in my life for
Mm,
him. And in my case, it looked like switching gyms
mm.
from a perfectly fine gym near my office to one near my apartment, which was like a really rough around the edges 1980s boxing gym that happened to have one yoga class. And that yoga instructor took a spiritual approach as opposed to the other classes I'd been to in the past were more fitness oriented. And that really set me on this path. That's how I see it.
Yeah. I love that you highlight I never even thought of it as unconditional love, but you're so right. The idea that I can't get mad at like, I can't resent the dog if he does something that a dog would do, and I still wanna take absolute best care of him, and I love that he gets excited when I come home, and I'm like, "Yay, I'm excited to see you too," and it's just it's such a shifting experience because while it's one taking care of the other, I think the idea of we can often sometimes get caught up in the transactions of love when we're with people, but with our pets, it's no, I love you. Want to give you the best life possible because you are giving me something that cannot be described, and it's something that only people who are really in tune with their pets can really understand. And even before I got my dog, I was like, I'm gonna have a dog. I'm gonna love him. It's gonna be the best dog ever. And I was like really manifesting like the relationship with my pet. And then my aunt called me and was like, "Hey, I don't have this space for my dog anymore. Do you want him?" I was like, yes. So it was like a free
Perfect.
dog. She was like, "Okay, great, come get him this weekend." And it was right when I moved to Washington DC, and it was just amazing. He was a puppy. He started off rough, but the journey of loving him in tandem with learning how to love myself more has been really
Mhm.
special.
Yeah, I love that. Also, I often talk about the levels of consciousness by Dr. David Hawkins. And, when we're in the higher levels of consciousness, we are more open to life, to opportunities, whereas in the lower levels, we're really like overly concerned with ourselves. How do we
Mhm.
feel? How do we look? What do we want? And dogs are just pure joy, which is on the higher levels of consciousness. So if anything, like it unplugs you from those lower levels. And even if just for a moment, helps you to be present, brings you joy, and there's consequences from that, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's another big part of it as well.
Yeah, for sure. So, does your dog journey also go in tandem with your EFT journey?
I would say um, probably not a direct connection to EFT with my dog, but um, I will say that around that time when I was making all these changes, I got the dog, I started to do the soul searching, and one of the things I did was actually hired a coach
Okay.
for myself. And I didn't even really know about coaching at the time. This was really before the rise of the coaching industry, or like, I don't know how you want to call it, like the explosion of the coaching industry. I was actually looking for a therapist to help me, figure out with this soul searching mess that I was going through. And every recommendation that I was getting for a therapist was like booked out weeks and weeks. And I was like, I really don't want to wait. So through my searching for the therapist, I stumbled upon coaching, and I found a coach and I started talking to her, and I still work with her. Like
Mhm.
she has known me since day zero of this journey. And she introduced me to EFT tapping then. And I remember watching a video, and it really just it didn't hit for me. Like I was like, okay, this is like it was like one of her links that she sent me in her recap email, and I looked at it, and at that point I just knew what it was, but it wasn't a practice for me.
Mhm.
And then what happened was when I was already in the trenches of my entrepreneurial journey. It was like 3-4 years in. I had already established a foundation to my own business and to what all the different projects I was working on, and I started experiencing burnout
Mm.
for the first time in a long time. I don't think I even ever felt this type of burnout, because in the past it had been just from feeling uninspired. But this was the first time that I was so inspired and so passionate about everything that I was doing, and I got burnt out that way, which is also really possible, because people say if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life, and you know that's not true. Actually, if you're not careful, you will run yourself into the ground. So that's what was happening to me. I was really just spread thin, and I rediscovered EFT tapping at that point in my journey, because I needed just something new, like something fresh to breathe life into me. And I started practicing. And one part of my entrepreneurial journey that I haven't shared yet is that when I left and I started building what was originally supposed to be a mindfulness practice for businesses, I pivoted into private coaching, started coaching individuals. And as I was building up my client roster, I took a DJ lesson and I learned how to DJ, and I fell in love with it. But I didn't feel excited about playing just in my room by myself. So I almost instantly started playing for an audience. And that made me so happy. And I still DJ to this day. And the same experience was happening with EFT tapping, where I did it and I was like, whoa, this is something. There's something here. Like,
Mm.
I feel instantly better, and then there's lasting effects, and I'm noticing just more ease in my life. But still, sitting and practicing by myself was not that, like, there was no emotional charge, you
Mhm.
know? Like, we we talk about doing things with an emotional charge, that's when really you get the experience. So it's falling flat for me on my own, but I really liked practicing with others. So just little by little, I had a roommate at the time. I asked her if she would want to practice with me, and we did a tapping session together in the morning. And then she texted me later in the afternoon, and she was like, I made a sale out of nowhere. A huge sale came in, and it was a day we did abundance tapping. So I was like, okay, so this is fun, because now not only are we doing it together in real time, but we can follow up with each other and like talk about what's been happening in our lives as a result of this practice. So when I realized that I have a passion for this, I got myself certified as a practitioner. And then I launched my online community.
Mm.
And I specifically made the community for creatives and entrepreneurs, because that's what I do. And I know the challenges that come with that, and how EFT can help specifically with those challenges.
Yeah.
And I started practicing with community. So it's something that is of service to others and also holds me accountable.
Yeah. You just spoke to, if I'm understanding you correctly, just the how powerful being connected with our bodies is. Like DJing, I imagine like the vibrations of the music, the movement, the energy from the people you're performing for, and then also this more personal experience that's going on related to EFT. It's this embodiment, it's this connection, this soul connection with the self that is incorporating mind, body, and spirit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and even a step beyond that, with both of those practices, if you want to call it that, is also doing it in community, because it's your connection to self, but then sharing that experience. Because I did feel super connected to my body in both of those experiences, like with DJing, being super present with music and with selecting every single song and then mixing it with the next song. There's a lot of creativity there. And then with EFT tapping, the whole practice is a somatic practice. So it brings you into your body. And then that alone was very impactful. But to take it a step further is to share that experience with other people. And like you said, it's like it's a connector. So
Hmm.
first you connect within yourself, and then when you're in the presence of someone who is so connected with themselves, it's contagious. Like
Hmm.
you feel that energy and it overflows to other people.
Yeah. And it reinforces the idea that we truly heal in community with others when we are around people who are living within their purpose, moving in a similar vibration. It is contagious. It drives you to want to kind of have that, feel that. You want to offer that to yourself too.
Yeah, and also just seeing that it's possible when you see someone so close to you doing something they love, it's inspiring. And it's one thing to see it from a distance, but someone who's close to you, even if it's online, but someone who you have access to who's doing it and being able to talk about the things that they're going through, it makes it very real. And then when it feels real to us, our subconscious then feels like it's possible and it's safe to go ahead and do it. And then we start making different decisions
Yeah.
as a result, decisions that are in alignment with where we want to go.
Yeah. What's the coolest place you DJ'd?
Oh, well, last month I DJ'd in Greece on the water. It was 7 yachts that were tied together, and I was playing on one of them, and the sound system was going to all of them. And it was on the Aegean Sea. So I think that's the first thing that comes to mind. Playing on the Aegean Sea in Greece.
Oh yeah, that is really cool. And I hate to backtrack, but I do want to backtrack and emphasize the debunk the myth of entrepreneurs. If you love what you're doing, you don't work a day in your life. I have loved the life I am creating, and I work every day. And truthfully, if we aren't mindful, because I think we can get so immersed in the work that we're creating, if we don't allow ourselves the space to take a step back to maybe observe it from a different lens and just give ourselves the care and space that we deserve, we can absolutely burn out from the work that we're creating.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very tricky because sometimes it doesn't feel like work, but we're still in drive mode. We're
Mm,
not in the soothing system mode when we're out there and we're connecting and we're creating actively. It's very much the masculine energy. So
mm,
that's been a big lesson for me as well in the process is to honor that balance and to
yeah.
be conscious of it on a daily basis. And some days, like maybe you'll have a cluster of days that's not balanced, but finding that balance in the next couple of days. It's not a perfect science, but just having that awareness and being
Mm,
in tune with your body is, if you have that, then you're good.
yeah. Yeah, definitely. I just this past week I had a couple of days where I was going, and then I like woke up over the weekend and I was like, I'm exhausted. And then I was like, wait, I'm feeling a little burnt out. And so I allowed the curiosity in the space to say, yeah, this is beyond like the standard tired. It's not a nap. And I kind of had to remind myself
Yeah.
that I chose to work for myself to get out of the 9 to 5 grind. Like give myself the space to take a lunch break, give myself the space to stay hydrated, take a break, walk the dog in the middle of the day if I want to, but recognizing that in the same way that I'm cultivating and creating my personal life, I can also create and cultivate my business in the same.
Yeah, absolutely. For me personally, it was also detaching my self worth from my productivity or even my definition of productivity. So that's a trap that a lot of us fall into as well is when there's no clear structure like you have in an organization like in corporate, then you just kind of you can keep going. and going and going. And then you'll never know, am I succeeding or not? Like, and then you just keep going because you're not sure.
Yeah.
So setting those boundaries for yourself is super important.
100%. You just spoke to the self-worth piece that can come with work. And because with entrepreneurship, you don't have the same goals or milestones every day. You don't have those maybe tangible deliverables. It's something that you build, it's something that you create, something that you put out. And then if we are so attached to our work, we'll say, well, that question comes up. Am I doing enough? Am I producing? Am I working hard enough? And being able to give ourselves a little bit of distance from those questions and saying, regardless of what I did today, I'm still worthy and whole as I am, then we can honestly be more present with our work versus worrying about the tangible deliverables and attaching them to our value.
Mhm. Yeah. And to kind of bring it around full circle, when you ask, like, how did you get from point A to point B? It's that as a creative and entrepreneur, it's not really like, it's not a line, it's not a straight line. There's so many twists and turns and detours. So, really embracing that and redefining what success looks like. For many years, I did everything on a boutique scale. So, it was all one on one, it was all local DJing. And I decided last year that I want to expand. I want to go bigger, reach more people. And with that came sacrifices, you know, doing things differently than you've done before, getting out of your comfort zone again, and learning new skills and accepting feedback from others and listening. So, yeah.
Yeah. You've offered the listeners so many strategies to creating and pivoting. I mean, getting out of your comfort zone, sitting with the awareness piece and knowing you don't have to do anything with it immediately, cultivating community that's in alignment with who you are, what you're working towards, and I think get a pet. I think we could all benefit from a pet.
Yeah, I think I would go further to say that if you feel called to get a pet, because I don't think everyone is built for a pet. Although I will say that my mom was the one reason we never had a dog. Now she's extremely attached to mine. So you never know. You never know. But yeah, if you're feeling called to get yourself a little nugget of unconditional love, it's worth it.
Yeah.
So worth it. It has greater benefits than you can even consciously realize right now.
So, Ellina, how can people work with you? How can they get in touch with you?
So get in touch through Instagram at Ellina Sukh. And to work with me, come explore the Conscious Life Design Studio. I'm very active and involved there. We have live sessions every week. We talk in between the sessions in our live chat and journal. And there's, of course, a 7-day free trial. So completely risk-free to go in and look around. But that's where you'll find me. I drop in there every single day for even a little bit and connect with all the amazing creatives and entrepreneurs inside.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for just offering such valuable insight and really discussing and exploring the various ways that you've been able to create and cultivate a more aligned life.
Thank you for having me.